This is part 2 of the episode about politics and music. We left off talking about how fascism killed classical music because there used to be a time when classical composers had a lot of influences, a lot of inspirations from different genres, different cultures. But all of a sudden, that development took a very different turn. Let's jump right back into it. Well, the Nazis deemed all those influences and anything that wasn't strictly European as degenerate. And obviously they banned Jewish musicians. For example, Mendelssohn, who wasn't even Jewish. I mean, he had Jewish ancestry and he was proud of that. And that was enough to ban him, even though he was actually a Christian. Or then we have Mahler. Did you know that he converted to Catholicism? And then he got the job at the Vienna Hofoper after converting. Because otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to work as a Jew, right? Even though probably his beliefs did not change. It was just a technicality.
Will it happen in the future again?
What?
That you have to convert to get the gigs?
Oh, man. In some way, it's happening now. You have to convert to being a capitalist. Of course, we don't have to talk about Wagner. He was a Nazi, basically. But then even people like Strauss, it's a very complicated history. He did work with the Nazis. He was actually head of the Reichsmusikkammer, but he had Jewish family and he probably did it to protect them also, even though, he couldn't really. It's pretty tragic. But then composers like Hindemith, he had a lot of influences from
him.
Yeah, he's your favorite, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he had a lot of influences from jazz, some atonality, he was experimenting. And then when the Nazis came, basically he tried to resist them, but he was soon banned and then he fled to the US and his music lost a lot of inspiration through that.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. But so basically through that, the music wasn't allowed to evolve freely anymore. And after World War II, a lot of composers really didn't want to continue any of this musical tradition that had been going on throughout fascism, because fascism did also use music and use the emotionality of music.
Yes.
A lot of people have discussed this. There's a lot of philosophers who are analyzing that. Even the composer Stockhausen said he disliked the 4/4 beats because it reminded him of the marches that he heard on wartime radio. That's so heavy, man. But so a lot of them rejected this romanticism of the time as well. And not only were they rejecting sort of these traditions, but also they didn't want to appeal to the masses anymore because they realized how the power of music and the emotionality of music could be misused. And so they didn't want that to happen again. And they actually didn't want to appeal to the masses so much. And then jazz and pop took over, and really that's where it all sort of went downhill for classical music, because it wasn't made anymore in mind with like what could be popular, what do people want to listen to, right? And so it was really sort of frozen in time a little bit. It didn't develop the way it would have otherwise.
They started to experiment, sort of too much of experiments, and nobody wanted to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. It became so intellectual that
exactly.
It became elitist.
Yeah.
So before it wasn't such an elite thing as it is nowadays.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting. There, again, it's very political. A lot of people can't afford to go to the opera, for example. And it wasn't always like that. It all happened through history.
Yeah, the opera houses would die, man, if they wouldn't get so much support.
Yeah, if they didn't have all of those rich people coming in.
Yeah, all those rich people coming.
Yeah, because it's not about the.
It's not the state, the city supporting.
Exactly, and it's just
houses. Yeah,
it's just supporting this idea of how valuable this is, right? But really, if you look at how many people listen to classical music, it's not that many people, but they do have a lot of money. But yeah, so to this day, there's a lot of racism in classical music. As you said, we barely see a black person in an orchestra. There was even a big scandal when a big uproar when in the Grammy Awards, 2 people of color were nominated for the classical award, and yeah, people got really upset about it. That was John Baptiste and Curtis Stewart, and they also used like some jazz, some blues, and yeah, people got really upset about it. And that's after everything the white people stole from the black musicians, that they are so angry that like some black musicians get some recognition in classical music. That's just, yeah, very upsetting, honestly. Yeah, there's really not a lot of people of color in classical music. More Asians, I would say, than like, yeah, black people. But
I went to many concerts, classical concerts. I never saw a single one.
Yeah, damn.
And we're talking about hundreds of concerts.
Yeah.
Yes, I can remember one person, and that's Bobby McFerrin, who went for the classical music, and he was conducting orchestras. Maybe he wrote some pieces, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he wrote some vocal pieces also, yeah.
That's for sure, but maybe even some instrumental classical music, I don't know. He used to sing with Chick Corea.
Yeah,
and
jazz,
of
blues.
course,
He was able to unite it all, man.
Yeah, and who doesn't remember Don't Worry, Be Happy, right?
That was his biggest hit, and it was a cover.
Yeah, anyway, I don't know anybody else in classical music.
True. Yeah, so racism, definitely. Misogyny as well. There were plenty of women in history who were composing classical music, but they did not get the same recognition, neither at that time nor now, though people are becoming a little bit more aware of it. A few examples are Fanny Mendelssohn. Her brother always overshadowed her, and he got a lot more support from their parents than she did. Yeah, Felix Mendelssohn, exactly. Yeah. But she composed over 400 works.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And of course, the Bach.
Yeah, his wife.
Magdalena, was it?
Anna Magdalena Bach. She was actually really important also for his career. She was transcribing a lot of his music. And later on, researchers found that some of his music was actually composed by her.
Yeah, they were talking about the Bach suite.
Yeah, the 6 cello suites. That one is actually confirmed
and
that she wrote it.
It makes perfectly sense. It sounds like a girl would write it.
What does that mean?
No, I mean a woman. He was a fantastic composer, but I mean it has this special touch, and a cello and.
The emotionality or something?
Emotionality.
The suffering that he was missing. There we go again.
Yeah, I mean, those women were not allowed to publish anything because nobody would publish it.
Yeah,
you know, it was all
really hard,
all the guys, you know, and behind them were the girls.
Yeah, exactly. Even the men got the credit, but it was actually their wives who were composing it. Yeah, or I mean, that's the best case scenario, and it sounds horrible because it's fucked up if your husband gets credit for your work, but it's better than if you are composing and making music and then you get married and your husband tells you, no, you have to stop because it's not your place. And that happened to plenty of them as well. For example, Alma Mahler, she got married to Gustav Mahler and he prohibited her from continuing her musical career.
No.
He said that
it
was
way.
Yeah, he said that it was her role to be a supportive companion. Fucked up, right? And then Clara Schumann also, she was an accomplished pianist and composer, And she got some recognition, but yeah, she was also a driving force behind the popularity of her husband, Robert Schumann. And so, yeah, a lot of them were also really supporting their husbands. And maybe those men would not have had this success if they hadn't had the support of their women.
It was the role of the women in those days.
Yeah, but that makes you think, man. All of these men who think they're such big shots, they couldn't have made it if they didn't have the support. And it was just like
you can say that
taken
about
for granted.
A lot of men.
Yeah, definitely. Also, Ethel Smith, she was also a composer and really important for women's rights and that they got voting rights. And another name I want to mention is Florence Price, who was not only one of the first women to have a symphony performed by a major US orchestra, but she was the first Black woman also to do so. That was in 1932. The Chicago Symphony Orchestra performed her symphony in E minor.
Wow.
Yes. And so now I just have a few numbers for you. There was a study where they studied thousands of classical concerts, really, of the top orchestras. And they looked at who were the composers, right? Only 5% of the music that they played was written by women. And now if you look at people of color, it's even worse. Only 1% was by Black or Asian women and only 2% by Black or Asian men. So that's incredible. Pretty much all of it was just white men.
That says it all.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an incredible number because they studied 4,800 concerts and almost 90% of those concerts were entirely male written music. It's huge. So this problem really persists to this day. We will talk a little bit more about what we can perhaps do about that later. But first, we want to get into our segment, All Covers Considered. All covers considered. All covers considered. We've already been talking about it without naming it. Cultural appropriation. And of course, we have to talk about the covers that have to do with that. I mean, cultural appropriation started a long time ago, even in the beginning of the 19th century when they were doing minstrel shows where white people did blackface and sort of brought the music of the slaves and then they had fame with it. That's crazy. But it continues in this line when, as we mentioned, white people were taking songs of Black people and they got a lot of success with it. It happened many, many times. Also, not just in blues and rock. For example, Bob Marley, who wrote I Shot the Sheriff in 1973, and just 1 year later, Eric Clapton covered it and got a #1 hit.
Yeah, of course.
And not only that, but in 2003, the song by Clapton was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. But it wasn't even his song.
Oh, man.
How can they do that, right?
Incredible.
So this one is pretty tough. And back in rock and roll history, of course, Janis Joplin, great singer. She was also riding on the wave of Black music. And she covered Ball and Chain by Big Mama Thornton. And what's the harm in it? Covering a song, right? But her label got the copyright for the song, and Big Mama Thornton never got any royalties for it. And that's just not fair.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, if at least the person who wrote the song would get some money for another person making a success with it, yeah, then there would be some fairness. But that was often not the case. Nowadays, it's a little different. There's more laws about it. And since we talk about it a lot, sampling, covering, and all that, I wanted to get into what actually the laws are around it. So if you want to cover a song, if you want to reinterpret somebody else's song, you don't have to get their permission, which I think makes sense. It would be kind of weird if somebody could tell you, no, you're not allowed to play these chords and sing that melody because I wrote it. Yeah, it's your intellectual property, but still somebody else can play it in their own way. And I think that's fair. But the moment that you start sort of commercializing it, it makes sense that you have to pay for it. And so if you want to record it, you have to get a mechanical license and pay a fee for that. And in the USA, that's compulsory, so they have to give you the license, right? So as long as you pay, you can make your cover. And if you want to play it live, that is usually covered by the venue. They have to make sure that they have a license for all of these songs. You know, you can get like a blanket license where many, many, many songs are just, you know, you're fine to play them. So yeah, you have to get a license if you want to record a CD, for example. But if you publish the cover song on Spotify or Apple Music or other streaming services, you don't, because they take care of it for you. Since 2019, there's this thing called the Mechanical Licensing Collective. And so basically they have a blanket license, and any song that you cover and upload there, they take care of the royalties for you, which in a sense is positive, but it's also kind of crazy because then people can just make covers and they don't even have to worry about anything. They can just take the song, upload it, as long as it's just on streaming services. If you make a video, it's another story yet again. Then you have to get synchronization licenses. It's a whole thing, right? It depends on what you want to do. Now, if we're talking about sampling, that's a different thing, because it's not like you're just using the composition, but you're using the actual recording, right? And so now there's a whole other set of rights involved. So you have to both get the recording license, so that's usually the label who owns the recording, but also you have to get the permission from the owner of the composition.
Which means he doesn't have to give your permission. Yeah. He can just block it and say, no.
No, don't use my song. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's not the same as when you are doing a cover, right? Then they have to give it to you. And so basically the thing there is also because you're not reinterpreting their song. You're doing your own song, but using a part of their song and a part of their recording. And now there's another thing called interpolation, which it's similar to sampling, where you, for example, you take a melody from another song and you put it in your own composition, but you don't use their recording. So it's not a sample. You don't take a snippet from somebody else's recording and put it in there, but you say, oh, I like this melody. I'm going to take it and I'm going to record it, but still you took it from their composition. So that's called interpolation. And in that case, you don't have to get a license to use the recording because you're not using a recording, but you still have to get the permission from the songwriter or whoever owns the rights.
Because you're using the melody.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter if you're going to play it again, by yourself.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You're using the melody in your own composition. Yeah. It's not covering a whole song. Yeah. So it's different. Marvin Gaye made this song called Praise. And he used a riff by Stevie Wonder, but he gave him credit within the song because he said, Stevie, we really dig you. Hope you don't mind this riff from you. Or something like that.
That's beautiful, man. That's really the way it's supposed to be, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's
like
gorgeous.
giving a credit to anybody who helped you to create something, something new, your own thing, but you're using some, either it is a beat or melody, a riff. That's you should give a credit.
Exactly. Because it's not even just inspiration. It's literally taking something from somebody else's song. And so there's all of these laws. And technically, if you go and get your licenses and you pay the fees, you pay the royalties, it's all legal and it's technically not stealing. But I still think if you don't give any credit, it's still sort of stealing. Because the people who are listening, they don't know.
It's not sort of stealing. It is stealing.
Yeah, and especially...
Remember that.
Especially if you think about it, that often the royalties or whatever isn't going even to the songwriter, but to their label. Or what if an artist isn't alive anymore? And then you pay those fees, you pay those royalties, and it's just going to the label who owns everything. They're not profiting from that. It's just legal technicalities, but if you really care about the musicians who you're taking stuff from, then you should give them credit. And of course, it's a big question, how can we do that? Because it's normally you don't have like credits listed on Spotify. You can see some credits, but it's not right there in your face. What was interesting is I saw that Jeff Beck did a cover of Sam Cooke, and he really listed Sam Cooke as one of the artists. So you have both of them there, and it's like, oh, who is that? And then you can click on him and you can find out. And I think that's a great way to give the credit.
It's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. However, it's not something that independent artists can do. You know, if you're big and you have a label, you're established, then you can do that, because I couldn't just upload a song and say, I don't know, Stevie Wonder is playing on it, you know, as one of the artists, because they have to approve it, right? Those who own his profile or whatever. So if you're big, you can do that. But if you're an independent artist, it's just not an option. However, I think you could put the name into the title or onto the cover, but just find a way to give them credit. It's only fair.
Yeah.
To return to the conversation of covers that were culturally appropriating, to continue that, there was also Little Richard, iconic, Tutti Frutti, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now I butchered. I don't know if I should bring that. That's all.
Yeah, well, I think the Tutti
Frutti, Rudy. I have to practice.
But I think this song, Tutti Frutti, is actually defined my life. You know, like I went through the life like I want to have a Tutti Frutti, you know.
The philosophy.
Thank you, little. You know, it's like ABBA. Oh man, I don't like that.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Why are you talking about ABBA?
ABBA, why they said, I want it all.
Aha, you mean it's the same mindset.
Tutti Frutti, I want it all.
Sure, yeah.
Oh man,
yeah.
such a terrible band.
Opulence. No, but anyway.
It was not even a band.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever.
But yeah, Tutti Frutti, iconic song. And then Pat Boone came along, this white boy who covered it and got so much success with it. And I watched this interview by Little Richard. It was like 2001 or something. And he really said that at first he was disgusted. Because honestly, if you compare it, please listen to our playlist and compare the two. It's insane. Like the audacity to take this song and deliver it so weakly, honestly. But yeah, so at first he was really angry about it. But later on, he said he was even thankful that Pat Boone, for example, opened some doors because he made rock and roll more accepted with white folks. Yeah, and so Little Richard even said that himself. But I think it's a really difficult thing because on one hand, they made it more acceptable, but at the same time, they also claimed it for themselves. And people started to believe that it came even from white people, or how could such a great thing come from black people? So, you know, at the end of the day, it's a little bit of both. They opened the doors, but at the same time,
they were stealing. It's a little complicated.
Yeah, it is complicated, for sure.
But
But I think there is a difference whether artists are making an effort to give credit and to support these original songwriters and performers who aren't getting the spotlight so much. For example, Janis Joplin was also inviting Big Mama Thornton to be her opening acts at some concerts, at least.
At least, that's fine.
Yeah, so there was some support there. Like there is the question of, are you giving back? Are you supporting these artists who aren't getting the same support that you're getting just because of your skin color, right? And that makes a difference. Are you just stealing without giving something back, or do you actually care? I think that's the main difference.
I don't think that Eric was giving back a lot.
Yeah, no.
Oh man, he has loads of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was maybe supporting in some way those inspirational guitar players like B.B. King, right? That was his idol. And of course, because he has such a huge name, he would organize festivals and inviting all those guitar players, right?
But seeing how much money he has, it's he could give back more, right?
Because he is the guy who was profiting a lot from those guitar players, B.B. King and other guys, and I don't think that he gave back really enough. You know, I mean, B.B. King surely had some money, you know, but he was the only guitar player from those Kings who made it commercial.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, other guitar players are working, you know...
not as big, no.
Freddie King, who knows them?
B.B.
You know,
King
but
is really
B.B. King is the one who made it into the charts.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, but anyways, I think it's all about proportions. Like if you look at Eric Clapton, who got so rich, like he could give back a lot more. But if you look at Janis Joplin, who was herself struggling with addiction and died really young, like I think she did what she could. And also as a woman, you know, it always depends on like the more you profit, the more you should give back, right? In a way.
It sounds noble.
It sounds noble, yeah. Few people are that noble. Yeah. Another example is the Rolling Stones. I mean, it's a white British rock band who they really love blues, they love rock, and they went for it. And they are, for many people, they are a really defining rock band. But once again, they really thrived on black music, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They at least got some black musicians in the band.
Right.
Like
Billy
Preston playing the keyboards. And lately they have this fine bass player coming from Miles Davis band, which sounds pretty strange.
Yeah.
So
that's a crossover.
You know, it's a good thing to do things like that, but I think they paying much less money to those black musicians.
But is it because they're black or just because they're not the original Rolling Stones?
No, I guess that is the case. Yeah,
because they're not the OG.
No.
Yeah, but also there, I mean, even just the band leader gets much more money.
That's what I heard. You know, that he gets 2 million.
Yeah.
And Keith Richards gets 1.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I read nowadays they earn the same, but what's clear is that they earn more than all the rest, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, in some bands, it's the rule, you know, like the lead singer. But normally, they should be square, you know.
Yeah, I think it's weird to have such a hierarchy, which again is very political. And I mean, it's okay to have a leader.
Like in classical music.
Yeah. There too, you have the conductor, the solo players, then you have the first violin, the second violin. Such a hierarchy.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think like it makes sense that you have a leader, but that shouldn't mean that they get more acknowledgement, more money and all of that. It should just be about like leading, right?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I guess it's fine if the leader or the solo player gets more money, but there should not be too much discrepancy. Like let's say the fourth violin gets for a concert, they get maybe if it's big, they might get a couple of thousand. Mm-hmm. You know, and the solo violin gets like 20,000, you know. Yeah. So that's, in my eyes, it's a little bit too much difference.
Sure.
But
Exactly.
that's the way it is in the business sometimes. And also in classical music, that's the rule. And in pop music, I think you have to distinguish from band to band how it works. You know, I mean, like when you take Bon Jovi, it's the name. It's the name of the band, so I can imagine that he gets more money, and so depends on the
depends from
band.
case to case.
From case to
but
case,
generally, I think there shouldn't be too much hierarchy.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Rolling Stones, they did have some black musicians. You told me the other day also that they really helped out Tina Turner. I didn't know about that.
Yes, I think the Mick Jagger helped her in the beginning of her career, that she gets the contract,
Wow, okay, yeah, so that's giving back, man.
That's giving back.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really something.
For real, man.
Yeah.
And another person that we have to mention if we're talking about cultural appropriation is Elvis Presley. Though I would say his cover of Tutti Frutti was much, much better than Pat Boone's.
I guess so.
He wasn't explicitly political. Of course, the choice to make sort of black music is a political statement, but at the end of the day, he really profited from it. And also in that case, it's a question of, did he just open the doors and make rock and roll more acceptable to white people? Or did he really just profit of being white and making the black music? It's always the same thing. Yeah, it's just crazy if white people are getting celebrated for the same thing that is being used to discriminate against black people. If black people play it, it's degenerate, it's evil. When white people play it, they took it to the next level. It's just fucked up.
I just wanted to say because of that, and it's complicated, but because of that kind of racial interaction in the music, the black blues and the white cats trying to copy them, and they don't know how to play it properly, because they had some records, but nobody showed them how the black guys playing a blues. So they had to find out themselves how it's being done. What do they do?
Just from hearing.
Yeah, just from hearing. And in that moment, something happened. They created white blues, which is also racist. White blues, black blues.
That sounds
you could
so
say
weird,
it sounds weird, but it's true. They created different kind of a blues because they didn't know how to play that blues. So something happened.
Yeah, that's how music developed in general, by hearing and trying to imitate.
And that's lovely. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
And I think that's great thing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, of course, they were sort of copying,
Stealing,
and
exactly.
giving, getting more credit.
Yeah.
And
than those who actually invented it.
and getting more money and more money.
Exactly.
And the other guys,
nothing. Yeah.
nothing. So this is a little sad.
Yeah.
But it's.
But it has its place in history and how music developed and
that's life, something has to being created, and but the thing, what happens afterwards, and what happened afterwards was not a really nice thing, because the black cats didn't get the credit as much as they should have.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. It would be okay if white people play rock and roll and blues and they get credit as well as the black people get credit.
Yeah.
But it was always just the white people. And that's the problem with Elvis Presley. He can get acknowledgement for his singing, his dancing and all of that, but he shouldn't be the only one getting credit, and he should certainly not be called the king of rock and roll when there are so many other kings who came before him. Yeah, as we said, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, B.B. King, Albert King, all those came before him. So how can we call him the king? That's not right.
No fucking way.
Just one last cover that I want to mention, because I really love it. All Along the Watchtower, which was written by Bob Dylan. I mean, it was already a great song, but when Jimi Hendrix covered it, man, it really turned into something else. And you can listen to it for yourself and decide which one you like better. But even Bob Dylan himself said that he loved Jimmy's version and it really influenced him and the way he played this song. And later on, after Jimmy died, it felt like a tribute to Jimmy. And I think that's really beautiful. It's exactly what music is supposed to be, an exchange. All covers considered. Man, if we are talking about politics, we have to talk about the music industry. It's very political. They tell you what you can and can't do. They own often the rights to your music, to your recordings.
They own you.
They own you, basically, yeah. Man, and also if we're talking about Elvis Presley and how he was seen as the king and all of that, that's also the industry, you know, that made that out of him and that gave him that crown. So I think we shouldn't always only look at these individuals who were stealing from Black people, but we should look at the industry who actually did that very consciously. They are the ones who knew you have this great music here, but if we take it and we repackage it in a way that will work for the whites, then we can sell it to them. And I would say they're actually the big bad guy in this situation.
Clever move.
Yeah, man, super clever and super evil. Yeah, but the label decides what you're allowed to sing about. They're often the reason why musicians aren't being political. They're often the reasons why musicians get more and more mainstream. And yeah, it's all about marketing at the end of the day. And so often, like the press texts or just the descriptions of the music are way more interesting than the music itself. It's all about marketing. You can make something great out of something mediocre.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, in my eyes, Phil Collins started that kind of a thing, like the way he was looking like a normal guy, you know, straight guy, and almost no hair. And a lot of people just started to think, oh man, I'm also like him. But they forgot that he is a very, very talented guy.
Yeah.
Just judging by his appearance. Because when you think of those pop stars before, we had a glamour rock, we had this and that, and normal guy wouldn't associate with it, They look at them, I cannot have the haircut like that.
Yeah, or I can't have this confidence to do
and
this kind of
performance. And wear these trousers, man. No way. But Phil Collins was just like...
relatable.
Yeah. But later, nowadays, of course, has changed into something else. That means mediocre, but really no talent. They are being celebrated. And somehow it seems that managements and labels, they really go for it. Less talented you are, more we want you.
Really looks like it. It sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah, really. That sounds crazy, but
it's the development.
That's what's happening in my eyes nowadays.
Yeah, and people are just impressed if somebody has a lot of listeners, like if somebody gets a lot of streams or they're on this big stage and that. But that doesn't necessarily say that much about your talent, really, about the quality of your music, man. The numbers don't mean anything, besides the fact, and that's also nowadays, like, musicians can't really make money with streaming. Like in the past you could sell some CDs and make some money, and now it's like you have all those streaming numbers and it's worth nothing to a musician. But of course the streaming companies, the labels, they make money. But so actually the numbers don't really mean anything, because if you have money, you can buy an audience. If you have an audience, you make more money. What's popular becomes more popular. And fucking proof of how little these numbers really matter is, well, on one hand, we have Matthew Whitaker. He is honestly a genius. I think he's the next Stevie Wonder, let's be real. And not just because he's black and blind. I don't want to be offensive here. But really the way he plays and the way he combines the genres, and with the jazz, the blues, the pop, his energy, incredible. And we saw this concert on TV. It was incredible. So I looked him up on Spotify. And he has 3,000 listeners. And his number one song on Spotify has like 170,000 streams, which is so little for somebody who has so much talent. And then, on the other hand, we have like these bands that are up and coming, like Annie Taylor is this Swiss rock band, and I'm bringing them up because we've been talking about rock. And you can say what you want about white people playing rock, but there's many great examples. But the audacity to call this band rock, in general, the audacity nowadays of people who are just like calling their music rock because there's an electric guitar. What the fuck is this shit? I'm sorry, but it's making me really angry because it's not rock. It's, besides the fact that they're not really very musical and she can't really sing. Rock needs to have that fucking energy, have those fucking riffs, have a little bit of an edge, a little bit of screaming, something. They don't have any of that. And they have, currently on Spotify, they have 21,000 listeners, as opposed to Matthew Whitaker with just 3,000 listeners, and about the same amount of streams on their number one hit. Again, it's not a big number in comparison to other artists, but if you compare their quality of music, their talent, their originality, it's worlds apart. So the numbers really don't mean that much, let's be honest. Even though, of course, it looks good, and of course the goal is to get listeners, but at the end of the day, it's not just about that. It's about, are you putting something new out there? And are you pushing yourself to be great? But another very political thing in the industry is about the rights. And we were talking about it, sampling, covering, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. It is what it is. But one thing that I think is really crazy is posthumous releases. And what that is, that fancy word, is when an artist who is dead releases music, which doesn't make any sense. But it does, because labels they own their recordings basically, and they have maybe demos or unfinished projects, and then they decide, let's release this and make some money. Great plan, but I think it's really unethical, honestly. The biggest controversy with a posthumous release was Michael Jackson, and actually they did multiple posthumous releases for Michael Jackson. But yeah, there was this album called Michael, and a fan thought it wasn't him singing. And it started this whole lawsuit against Sony. But Sony was cleared from the allegations at the end. However, it's still not clear. They removed 3 songs later on from all streaming services. And they said, no, it has nothing to do with these allegations, that it's not him. It's just taking a lot of attention away from the music. But also they said they were not in charge of these recordings and cannot say who took part in them. So really they cannot prove whether Michael was there or not, whether it's him or not. There's a lot of theories out there, but what is clear is that they are making money off of a dead person, off of projects that, well, I think one of those albums were like almost finished before he died. And so maybe there you can say, oh, they just released this album that he wanted to release. But there's also a lot of stuff that wasn't meant to be released. They were just demos. And there was no involvement of the artist in how they finished the production. So it was all about money.
So for all of you out there, remember, when you have some unfinished songs, make sure they are not allowed to be used after you die.
Unless you want them to.
Unless you want them to.
But yeah, no, that's the thing. Unless an artist has explicitly stated what they want to happen with their music after they die in a legal document, then the label or whoever owns their estate can do whatever they want. And it reminded me of this thing we voted on. It's about bodily autonomy and whether our bodies can be used
exactly.
for science after we die, right?
Yeah.
And essentially, they changed it so that nowadays, it's not about that you have to give a clear consent for, yes, I'm okay with it, and then they do it, otherwise they can't. Now it's the other way around. If you don't clearly state in a legal document, no, I don't want you to do it, then they can do whatever they want with your body. And it's going really in that direction, even though it's not your body, it's your creative, intellectual property, and it lands in the hands of greedy bastards who will just make money off of it when you're dead.
You mean like cutting the best piece off and post it in a museum?
No. I mean, that would maybe be not so bad.
No, I wouldn't. I would not really like it.
Oh, man. Yeah, no. To come all the way back to the beginning of this conversation about whether music should be politicized or not, we have seen throughout history, music has been such a powerful way of expressing and creating also power for movements and creating social change. So yeah, it can really be a great thing if music is political. So it also raises the question if artists have an obligation even to use their platform for activism.
No, absolutely no.
Yeah, I would agree that there is no obligation to make it political. However, I think that when you do have a big following, you automatically have a responsibility. You are influencing people. And I think it's just important to be aware of it.
Sure, you should be aware of it.
Exactly. And whether you decide to use it, to advocate for a specific cause or not, you should be aware of what kind of energy you are putting out into the world. And I think it's also important that simple love songs can exist without any politics or anything.
I think love that.
Yeah, and art can be a space for rest. Like, I think we shouldn't always be fighting. I think it can give an opportunity to find a break from these struggles that we are facing in our lives. But at the same time, I think activism doesn't always have to be fighting against something. We can also focus on what we are fighting for, and we can create alternatives and different ways of existing, just like those women did who were singing the blues, and they were making it also about pleasure and freedom and reclaiming it for themselves. And I think at the end of the day, yeah, music has so much power to create a collective energy. So it can be a really wonderful thing to create change together in a really positive way. So just think about it. What kind of energy are you putting out there? Are you sharing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just do whatever you want to do.
Yes, art is freedom.
Free spirit.
Yeah.
And it's up to you if you want to get politically involved with your lyrics, with your music. It's up to you.
Yeah, an example of somebody who really used his tour, used his platform to make something happen is Stevie Wonder. Did you know that Martin Luther King Day only exists because of Stevie Wonder? It's such an interesting story. It really mattered to him to create a day to honor this important peace activist. And he wrote the song Happy Birthday for Martin Luther King's birthday. And then he used the tour of this album, Hotter Than July, which peaked at number 3 in the US and number 2 in the UK. He used this tour to advocate for this. And eventually that happened, and that established the first US holiday in honor of a Black person. it's interesting because at first he wasn't so political in his music, and he was inspired by his peers at Motown, the incredible label, like Bill Withers. They were socially conscious, but it was difficult because Motown was amazing because there were these black stars who were crossing over into sort of these white spaces, right? They were reaching really popularity also with white audiences. And so the label didn't want to be too political. They wanted to stay neutral because they were scared that it would ruin their reputation as a crossover label, right?
Yeah.
And in this time, 1969, Marvin Gaye was struggling to make his concept album, What's Going On. Yeah, the owner of the label didn't want him to make such a political album, and it was really a power struggle of 7 months. But in the end, Marvin Gaye got to make his album, and it became super successful and one of the most important protest albums in the history of music. And Stevie Wonder was really inspired by that. And it led him to renegotiate his contract to gain full control of his music and his publishing at 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, after that, he got a lot more political, and he soon released the album Talking Book with his song Big Brother, which was about how they were really killing the black leaders. And I mean, it's incredible. He really went for it. He was very direct.
That's Talking Book marked his change. Mm-hmm. It was like a revolution in the music. Mm-hmm. The way he used synthesizers, and he was playing basically everything except the guitar.
Yeah.
And it was like an eye-opener to a lot of us.
Yeah. Yeah, so he created change musically and socially. He's really the one and only, man.
Yeah.
But so things have gotten a lot better, but there is still a lot of work to do. I think for me, a big question is, how can we go differently about things? And of course, these issues of racism and misogyny don't come from music. It's just a reflection of our society, of our system. But then again, in music, we have the opportunity to create change. And how can we do that? Well, I wish I had all the answers and all the solutions. But I think for now, all I know is that we need to remember these people who contributed, who really created important art, and who really marked music, for example. We need to remember their names. We need to remember their legacies. We need to give them credit.
Pay the respect.
Exactly, pay the respect. Music needs to allow cultures to meet. That's how music evolves. But just do it with respect. And it's important to support diverse voices. Give people a platform who otherwise don't get the opportunity, right? Give something back, as we talked about, especially with women nowadays. I mean, there's still more male artists, but there's so many women topping the charts, so it looks great. But if you look behind the scenes, if you look at production, there's only 2% women in producing positions. So the problem has really not been solved. If you can work with women, work with people of color. I think also Jeff Beck is a good example, right?
Yeah.
He had the girls in the band, right? On the bass, Tal Wilkenfeld. On the drums, Clam Catini, I think. And also he shared the stage with the guitar player Jennifer Batten, right?
Who used to be a guitar player for Michael Jackson.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah. And they are out there, these rocking women, but yeah, they don't get the opportunities as much. Exactly. So just keep all of that in mind. I think we've talked about everything there is to talk about for today, at least. We'll be back for something else. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to tune into the playlist as well. There's so many gems in there. And if you want, follow us on Instagram where we post updates. We also have like some discussions going on. And stay groovy. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye. Distractions everywhere, so we don't see it ain't what it seems. The real enemy, truth is it ain't you, it ain't me. Wanna see us fight, take sides, separate, spread the hate, gain more and more control every time we take the bait, but it's not too late. Come down, down now. Come down, down now. Come down, down now. Really free. Murderers, winning Nobel Peace Prizes, free to choose between evils of different sizes, searching for sense, but violent systems of violent ends. Come down, down now. Come down, down now. Come down, down now. Come down. Free. Let's start with our energy.